Hey, this is Candia Raquel, founder of Centro de Poder, and you're at the Sensual Sessions podcast, the place to sense your fire, to share your flame. And today we have a very special guest. This is Josef DellaGrotte. He's an extraordinary movement practitioner with a tremendously rich background. Like he met Moshe Feldenkrais himself, studied from him, and he met Ida Rolf. He has a PhD. He's a Feldenkrais not only practitioner but teacher, and he has his own marvelous system that intertwines all this somatic movement with a very strong anatomical base that is the fascia and the ring. So welcome, Joseph. It's such a pleasure to have you here. And would you tell us a little bit about your background? Like, how did destiny or your free will landed you with such an amazing historical, like sacred monsters of somatic movement? Tell us a bit about your story and your background.
It's I go where my interiority moves me. I listen to instructions from within, which is the title of my first book also. In other words, I'm listening to the messages by getting into the state where I can hear the messages. And so the rest is just the unfolding, the journey. I mean, the particulars of the journey that I was on, I can't tell you why. I can only tell you that I was a professor at a university. I was too much in the conceptual world that was not really embodied. I started doing yoga and Tai Chi. I was a founder of a yoga club at the University of South Florida. And so I was moving, and then I met Ida Rolf, and I started the training with her in 1972. Pigeon Key, Florida, very great experience. I said, this is the whole new frontier, but I was studying Gestalt at the same time. I was also interested in Al Peso, I had met with his system of psychomotor, which was body-centered with the psychophysical traumatic work that he did. And I gradually shifted and decided that I needed to move. And I thought Rolfing was going to be the vehicle, but when I met Feldenkrais, it was a whole new dimension because he was quite, in my experience, he was much more tuned to that, to where I wanted to go, because he was a physicist, he had the basis, and he had a method that was extraordinary. So I left the Rolf training and joined the Feldenkrais training, and then eventually the rest is history. Studied physical therapy even, and now I just do what I do. That's what Feldenkrais called his work when before they gave it the trademark name. He said, when they said, "What do you do?" He said, "I do what I do."
Do what I
now
do.
So that's a little background.
Fantastic.
Gestalt, yoga, Tai Chi, Rolfing, Feldenkrais, meditation, very important, Taoism. So I do them. It's all, it becomes integrated. Yeah.
Yeah. Core methods of self-knowledge, but through the journey of sensing yourself, not only thinking rationally about yourself. So I find it very interesting and tremendously important that you mentioned that you made your decisions that led you to this path and that led you to these great people by not in a rational way, but by feeling it in your body, like
by living it experientially. I think it came from my life experiences, and that's something you cannot really life is a mystery to be lived, not a problem to be solved. So I had extensive experience, not only because I studied these things, but because I have done perhaps over 100,000 kilometers of trekking all over the world, from the Himalayas to the Alps to the Appalachian Trail to the Camino Santiago. So that's where I think I probably may have learned much more from those life experiences. And it led me to my latest formulation, which is, I just call it the 5 rings, because it's 5 levels where each level has to be integrated, rather than doing one thing and then doing something and then doing something different. I'm following the model of the university, put it all under one umbrella. And I would like to call it the Soma-versity. Somatic. Put everything under one umbrella, because today we're all separated. And even when we talk about, to make it focused, if you want to talk about sensuality, it's a concept, and then you can access the feeling, but there's something behind that is the ground. And without that ground, you have no ground to stand on. And that ground, believe it or not, so basic, it's called the trochanteric pelvic floor, or core dynamic stabilization. In other words, I find my center of gravity and I move in the pathways of gravity, because that's the basic part, and the brain is tuned into that. So the brain is designed to keep you in balance and moving so you don't hurt yourself and you fulfill yourself. But that means you must learn how to move. If you don't move right, you're just talking virtual language. You're saying, you see, so I had to learn that by walking, and that some very life-threatening experiences came with that. I had to, I'm lucky I'm here. But you see what I'm doing right now, by those movements, I'm generating that pelvic floor vector of force, you see, the energy of force, which cannot be seen except in the movement. And if I do all those movements, look, and I get it organized with the 6 major pathways, which I simplified from physics and biomechanics, there are only 6 major directions. They call the cardinal directions. And if I use those and I stay in balance, I can lift, I can swim, I can do anything, I can do all the movements, I can do anything I want, I never fall down. Which means now that my vital center is also activated. Now, the yogis understood this, Tai Chi people, but it's also esoteric.
Yes.
So when you actually do the real biomechanics, it's very easy, because then you have the root. You see, in yoga, that would be the first chakra. Yes. But that's chakra is, nobody can pick out a chakra. But you can pick out a movement and you can measure the actual vector of force. If you watch people who play sports or dance, they actually show the vector of force, the trajectory of the movement, if it's going right or wrong. And if you don't kick the soccer ball correctly, it doesn't go into goal. If you don't play the basketball, palacanester, right, it doesn't go into the moon. If you don't dance right with your partner, you don't get in sync with each other. Therefore, your connection is already a little bit compromised. Now, so you have the root, which is really the biological, it's the basic intelligence of nature. But then you now go to the rings. The next ring is the breathing. So now you notice that every time I move, I've got a breathing that's going with it. In synchronicity. So now if my movement and my breathing are going together, and if I cultivate that in any direction that I want, but there are only 6 major directions, believe it or not, and 1,000,000 variations, now I can access the feeling, the sensory, the sensuality.
Yes.
The sensuality. So now I can get the feel, do I like this? Pleasant, interesting. Ooh, So now I'm integrating the feeling with the movement, with the breathing. That's number 3 level, right? Now I can go, and from there, as I keep going with, I want to touch. I'm not just touching somebody else, I'm touching myself. You know why? When you touch yourself, you're telling the brain to incorporate that sensuous, sensory feeling into your neurons. That's called the beginning of neuroplasticity. So now my brain is getting information because I'm touching the tissue, the fascia, not the bones, the tissue, the fascia, the breathing, the feeling. I've already got 4 in 1. Now I can move to the 5th. I could put food and diet in, but that's not where I want to come. It's of course a major important thing because it's sustaining you. Good food and diet is sustaining you, but you can't live on good food and diet. You would die if you don't move. So even the best food in the world, you die because you don't. Movement is the key to life. That was the key mantra of Feldenkrais, and it's true. Yes. Without the movement, all the best food in the world, you die. So you need that, but the real ingredients in the 5 rings, the next one is to enter into equanimity. It's now called, many other terms, parasympathetic state, restful relaxation, polyvagal. But it's a state of equanimity that every animal has to get into, and you can watch it, and we've tested it. In order to survive, they must return to equanimity. That means to a state like a kind of relaxed awareness. That's all it is, relaxed awareness. Because now with the being in the center and not having my body not having to adjust and struggle, I can enter into equanimity, which makes me see things clear. That was the Buddha state. That's what the Buddha said.
Yes.
That's why sitting posture was so vital. If you don't get it right, you don't get into samadhi. So now all these things are one. So this is an entire elephant. You don't do 5 courses to get there anymore. That's old school. That's stagecoach. That's old technology. That's like going back to the typewriter. You put them all together in one, like every creature does. They go together as one integrated unit. If you want maximum efficiency, you can still do a course on, I don't care what you call it, whatever, breathing or something, massage, and that's all the little branches on the tree. Yes. That's fine, as long as it's all coming together. And that's how the animals have to live. That's how every creature has to live. And that's how we have to live. But now, since we have lost some of these things, we try to make it up, you see, by doing a course in lymphatic drainage or massage, or particular 150 varieties of massage, 600 varieties of yoga and Tai Chi. It takes a long time to get there. Oh, Feldenkrais. Feldenkrais had a brilliant idea, but it took him 500 lessons that were not connected. It was a great beginning, but now we must put it together. And so that's my I call it my ultimate work has come to that, which is really nothing. It's kind of like returning to beginner's mind, you know, and so this is the what been.
Yeah. This is what?
That's what I'm doing. Now I teach it online mostly, but I'll do it some live. I call it the Masterful Moves course. I show people how to do that. Movements, do the touch, track the fascia, feel the feelings, do the breathing, go into equanimity. That's it. And so I've taken down 500 lessons in 800 hours of Feldenkrais, which was wonderful. I've actually about $2,000. And now you can do this a lot quicker, because nobody is going to do that kind of long training anymore. We're all too distracted and busy and stressed out. So you have to present things to get people back to the garden, so to speak, back to the garden.
Yes.
There was a song about it. We all have to get back. So that's what I'm doing these days.
Get back
I'm teaching that.
Yourself. And yeah, and I find it fascinating that your approach of the 5 rings starts with a very real, practical, anatomical base. Like there's no sense on trying to get into equanimity if you are collapsed. You need to start with the base that is the pelvic floor. It's not gonna happen for real because how can you get into equanimity if your lungs are like shrinked prunes because you're collapsed? Like it's a very practical thing that oxygen is not gonna go into your brain. So the more subtle, magical, esoteric things, aspects of experience, if you wish, are not gonna happen because there's no ground. So you have just led us in a journey of going like, okay, like first the typical get grounded that is so cliche, but it's so true. Though it's important to have like the key elements together, like okay, the trochanters, the seat bones, the pelvic floor, the core. Ah, okay, and then you can go to the next ring that it made me think how the pelvic floor it's a floor. It's a horizontal structure. And the diaphragm, like the next ring that you described, it's also a floor. Like so it makes sense because it's like starting from the very base of life itself. First, like the contact with the ground, the way you align your posture, the way you align yourself in the gravity field as a living being, and then you go to another level of refinement and awareness, because then the posture can be operating in the background of your awareness. And once you have the breathing, then you can add another layer to your experiential unfolding that is, I don't remember if it was the movement or the touch. Well,
yes.
then you go to the movement, and then the other ring, the touch, and then the state of equanimity. And fascinatingly, this is what we were doing when we were little kids. Like, and this is how the wild panther hunts and how the owls fly silently. Like they have the rings in place. So it's not something foreign, but this is actually a journey back into you and being in you, like not having a mind and having a body, but being
Well,
as a body.
we have to do. We have to learn to see. We are a word culture because we were trained that way. We are a word-dependent culture. We rely upon word descriptions, which are purely, they're good, they're maps, but they don't. It's a finger pointing to the moon. It's not the moon. Now,
Yes,
that's why we need the less of the explanation first and the actual practice. So, for example, if you play sports, which I only use as an example because here they have to do that, or dance, same thing. You must learn the fundamentals of the dance step, the salsa, and get the rhythm right before you can dance with a partner well. You must master that of the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You must learn that rhythm and how to put it into your feet and your movement and your hips. When you have that foundation, which is following the 6 paths, if I will show you, I will show you that every dance is following 6 major pathways. Okay, and that's why it's foundational. It's easy. Once you get that and you get the rhythm, now you can begin to dance with somebody. If you are on a soccer field and you want to be able to hit the ball, so you must have the trajectory exactly right. See? Otherwise, the ball does not go in the net. if you are a tennis player and you have backhand, forehand, and then you add all the other movements, but the movements are 6 major pathways. What? Sagittal, rotational, in all the form, lateral. And a million variations, millions of variations from the trunk of the tree. But the pelvic floor is being stimulated. Look, I'm getting uplifted every move. You see that? It's not just talk anymore. Look, I'm taking my hands to verify, because otherwise, if I do it, I'm really not getting the senses. If I touch with my hands, the sensory is increased 5 to 10 times.
Wow, 5 to 10 times.
Wow. So that's why you begin with yourself. So really, if you want to develop sensuality, even into sexuality, you start with you, not by touching your partner.
But by touching your partner. Yes, otherwise you will be
unless you get in sync together, but you have to start with you.
Touching. It's like thinking versus sensing and thinking and feeling and moving, like involving your whole
image. That's exactly. So now we must make those words. You must make the words grounded.
Become the body. Yeah, you want to experience the moon, not get distracted with the very long manicure nail that is pointing to the moon. Like the thing is the moon, and then
or your haircut.
Yeah, or hair and the super.
You see what I'm doing?
Eyelashes.
You see what I'm doing? You see, I can't do this on the public television because you see what I've got my adductor muscles. Now, why do I do that? Because my hands did it, as Zorba the Greek would say. I didn't do it. My hands went there because these muscles, if they tighten up, they don't reveal themselves to you at all. You have no feedback. But if the adductor muscles tighten up, you will diminish your sensuality, your sexuality, and other movements as well. So that's why when I look and I'm moving, I'm controlling the adductor muscles. You know why? That's a chain that goes into here, into the pelvic floor, into the psoas complex, into the transversus abdominis. It's an entire complex. And how many people would even think of doing that? They will stretch. You see, I do a stretch, but that's like the 6 blind men and the elephant. He touches one part of the elephant, he says, aha, I know the elephant. No. So you can't do a stretch alone. It has to be functionally integrated biologically into life. That was why the teaching of Feldenkrais was far more attractive than either Rolf, who only was a dreamer about that. She thought that the fascia was the key to happiness, salvation, and ultimate health, which was turned out to be totally untrue and unrealized. But she was brilliant in that she knew the fascia. And so we must keep that wisdom teaching, but incorporate it.
Yes. Ida Rolf, in my view, she was brilliant on focusing so much on something so neglected and even cut out, like all the anatomy studies are made with cut muscles. And she was like, oh, no, these are not separate parts to be cut. It's like you have the keyboard and it's like saying, oh, this is one thing. Yeah, of course, this is one piece, but it's part of a whole. But then paradoxically, her work focused so much in the fascia that then became only a part of the whole and not, it was very important, her holistic view and integration, but at the same time,
that's why it
was disintegrated. Whereas the brilliance of Feldenkrais was to just build his work in doing what he did, and that bypasses all the traps of our discursive mind that want to put things into box. So he, in a way, included the mystery, but he was a very hardcore scientist. He was a physicist, and he
has a personal life history which also made all that real. That's a story you can read on another time, but I can give you the reference. It's the life experiences that brought it together. Otherwise, it's, again, theoretical, you see. You got to embody it by having life experiences and practice. So that's all I do. I'm just returning to basic things. But you know what Allen Ginsberg said to me when we meditated together at a meditation retreat? Allen Ginsberg, he said to me, we were sitting washing the dishes together. He said, you know, I always wanted to return to the body in which I was born.
Bam! The Allen Ginsberg, aspiring to go back to the body where he was born. He was brilliant indeed, and he had an outstanding practice in hardcore, esoteric, Vajrayana Buddhism, and it's fascinating how humbling is this work of studying the basics. Like, you get to the, I don't know, like you earn all the medals. Michael Phelps, for example, like all the high level athletes gain the competitive advantage by refining something in the basics, like in the rings,
Yes.
in the vectors of movement. Like, as breathing, we take like 22,000 breaths a day. So if you get to improve 1% your quality of breathing, your organization of breathing, like your whole life will radically change, because it's something you do one and over and over. And the same with the athletes, and the same that what we are talking, like, yeah, this is basic, obvious, and Allen Ginsberg pointed out very clearly, like going back to the body where you were born, and that freshness. And also Picasso said, like his major triumph was to be able to paint as a kid again. And he always said, and at the same time, he said that he always tried to do things he didn't know or didn't work out, so he kept on learning. So is this spirit of curiosity, maybe even childish curiosity, but that keeps you with this spirit of being at the edge of the now, where life happens, and not being on the world of distraction. So how was it that you met Allen Ginsberg?
We were at a meditation retreat with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche up in Colorado.
The Chogyam Trungpa, super crazy, enlightened.
I was with him, you know, until he went crazy. Some of these people, you know, they lose it. As brilliant as they are, they lose it. It's hard to stay on the path. You know, you have to get back to profound simplicity. The Buddha, Gautama Buddha, made a very, you see, again, these are all simple sayings, but he said, don't believe anything I say. Try it out and see if it works for you, because you can't convince people. I've seen that. I could give a talk, I could show you scientifically, biologically, logically, that if you do A, B, and C, you will have this consequence, and if you do A, B, and C of this, you will have totally different, and they will not follow it. They will not follow it, because once you have disturbances in the brain and you have cognitive dissonance, it is called dissonanza, the things are not moving, the brain will take a path and create its own realities, which are totally fictional. And then you will believe those realities. That's the problem. So the problem is to get the brain and the body back together, but you can't talk about it. You have to do it, just like the child did. So we can only talk so much, and the more we try to convince people, the less they will be convinced. Because there is another saying in psychology, and it's somatic psychology, It's called cognitive dissonance, and I will give it to you nice and sharply, so as a warning. It's one of the little warnings. You cannot convince anyone of anything whose way of life or beliefs forbid them from being convinced. So if somebody's dependent on living on a different reality, you cannot convince them with any logic, any truth, any science. Nothing will work. That's why you have to bring people into the experiential, which is what Feldenkrais tried to do. But it was also, he had a very slow boat to China process, you know. It was too slow. It won't work anymore in our time. But the principle is good. It's called neuroplasticity. Yes. Or, you see, neuroplasticity. To feed the brain, which does the real thing anyway, not you, to get the brain to listen to that. And that's what he did. So he was a pioneer. And there are many good pioneers like that around, but nobody has been putting the whole elephant together. Some of us are trying, but you know, we're not waiting for results. We don't have attachments. We're just doing it and saying, try it out and see if it works. So I tell people, try this out, see if it works. That's the only way that it will get into the system, because the body cannot lie. Only the brain can lie.
Yeah, the body.
Or the mind can lie, but not the body. Brain cannot lie, because if it did, you'd be dead. But the mind part of the brain can lie, can deceive, can create realities that are not real. That's the world we're living in right now. So it's okay. You just have to learn to navigate well and get through, you know. The only way out is through, but you need to have the practices. And it's the practices that we are in somatic amnesia. Yeah. Tom, my dear colleague, Tom Hanna, we were colleagues together. He wrote the book about this. We are in the stage of somatic amnesia.
You wrote a book with Thomas Hanna?
He was my dear friend. We went to training together.
You took the...
Tom and I were very...
I saw pictures of Thomas Hanna.
He got me interested in it. Yeah, he got me interested in it. He was at the University of Florida. We were professors together.
Wow. Wow. And so you were in the real very beginning of somatic itself.
I was one of the first practitioners of Feldenkrais in the United States. That's right.
Wow. Yeah, because it was Thomas Hanna who invented the word, who coined the term somatics, like
somatic.
Body, mind.
The title of his book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Somatics.
It just comes from, it's just a word indicating the connection of the body to the mind, you know, but I use it just that way. The map is not the territory, but you need the map.
You need the map.
And now you can make a nice trail that goes to Mount Everest, but now you must walk it and survive. The trail is there, but you learn how to walk it, you get in trouble.
Yeah, and actually that's what's very humbling about the journey, that you can know like all the theory, but like the theory is only the map. It's only there for you to go and do the journey in the real, that is the body.
That's right.
That's why
the real is moving, touching, sensing, feeling, equanimity. There it is. It's all there. It's right there. That's it. Moving well. Tissue, joints, everything together. That's why you have to bring everything in. Breathing, feeling, equanimity.
Equanimity.
That's it. The formula is simple, but now you have to do it.
Yeah, now you have to go trekking the Himalayas and the Camino de Santiago, and that's where the greatest, even the greatest, failed. That is consistency, like to stay on the path, to stay on the journey. And so sad so many brilliant people like Chogyam Trungpa, like got derailed from the path. Or
oh, many of them. I was with Rajneesh. Rajneesh was brilliant. He got derailed. Moshe himself got derailed. But you know, we all get derailed. There's always a danger on the path, as Rumi says. Along the path, many dangers. There's always that, but that's okay. The mistakes are necessary in order to correct them. You see, you need the mistakes in order to get to the next stage.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
yeah. In
so
a way,
there's nothing wrong with mistakes. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with mistakes, and in a way, like this kind of pretzel we get into in Feldenkrais to get into the wonders of differentiation, that it's like, now I cannot move, and you have to explore the journey, breathe, sense yourself, equanimity, and discover, this is the way. And you create the way as you go through it. So I am very curious. Have you ever got derailed? And if it happened, how did you get back to the path?
Oh, I could tell you many stories of getting derailed. I think I sometimes wonder how I'm still alive. A few occasions one moved the wrong way, I was dead. And that happened just recently.
Tell us one that you got. I don't know if you went like Chogyam Trungpa, drinking gallons of sake.
No, I didn't have that. I've had other kinds of derailments, like you know, getting myself nearly killed once in India because I was dancing, and the priests thought I was a demon, and they told the children to throw rocks at us. I mean, you know, that was okay. I could get out because I could move fast. But the most life-threatening experiences are really interesting stories, like not paying attention when I was doing the Mount Everest trek. That was back in 1980. And there was a yak, and the yak's horns are about at least 6 feet wide. They're the big carrying animals in Tibet and Nepal. And they said, oh, be careful. The porters said, oh. And I said, no, I'll go by him. I'm smart. I know how to get around. And the yak turned with the horns and hit me right here. And if it wasn't for my Tai Chi move, look, like that, I would be punctured. And it was 10 days by yak to the nearest hospital.
Oof.
And I probably would have been gangrene infected by then. I was in the middle of the mountains of the way up, and the yak hit me, and I had the Tai Chi. Look, I did this. And the horn hit me here, but it didn't penetrate. It only made a
like a very bad.
And I was in Rome recently, and I was had a little wine. It was at night, and Rome is a dangerous city, especially. And I walked across a major highway to get back to my hotel, and the car was coming in a direction I never anticipated at about 60 miles an hour, and I did the exact movement and missed me by that much. Otherwise, we would not be talking today. So I've been through life-threatening. I can tell you about 6 or 7 more, but I don't know, you know, I cannot tell you how, because I didn't save, whatever saved me came from the wisdom within, the intelligence within. You see, I didn't say, oh, I'm going to get out of the way. That was instinctual in 1/500th of a second. But if I was not capable of moving at my age in 1/500th of a second, I would not be talking to you today. So those one of the normal things that go with life. And if you don't make it, you die. You know, people die all the time. So, but that's the learning experience. You learn, next time, be careful about going in Rome and crossing highways. Be careful of yaks. Mount Everest. Be careful when you think you're safe and you're about to fall off a cliff. Be careful when you go to that place, because they come at you with a knife and they're going to kill you, maybe. So, you know, it's just normal. And dead men don't live to tell any tales, so there's no problem with this.
C'est la vie. And so interesting that all that.
By the way, shouldn't reveal my age. I shouldn't reveal my age, but because you see, it doesn't matter. If there were no birth records, you would not know how old I am, except you'd guess, right?
Okay, are you gonna reveal the secret number?
Well, do you think I should do that online?
Yeah,
I'm
of course.
85 years of age.
How many?
But I don't know that because I still bicycle, walk, swim, dance, you see. So it's a biologically real, I mean, it's age, but it doesn't define your condition. So it's not about how long I live, it's the quality of how you're able to live.
So you are...
See, because there's no question, you get older, you get more susceptible to problems. But
So,
I don't have any problems, no medications.
No medication. But again, like I am shocked and stunned. So it's 85, like 8 and 5? 85?
Right. 85.
Wow.
85.
You're just a teenager. Yeah, like Joseph Pilates said that the prime of our life should start at 70, precisely because until then you have matured all the previous journey to get into like a very real experience of yourself and life, but not through the rational and not even through the deliberate practice, but through the experience of the world, involving all of that in you that you don't know that is there, called the unconscious, that was able to move in a 1,000th speed of a second twice. And both instances, the quick response and the Tai Chi were like from the core, like you made like a very quick psoas, pelvic floor adductor move that kept you live and kicking to do
Tai Chi,
yes.
for me, everyone will find their path. To me, the Tai Chi is the most complete, except for the aerobics part. It's the most complete movement because it was designed from the animals and it's in movement, except for one thing. It was an esoteric practice. Now we can make it, and I've made a videotape on Tai Chi, by the way, using these principles that I talked about. Now we know the Tai Chi from the mechanical, the mathematical, the biomechanical perspective. It's actually the best system of exercise done well because it has all the movement factors, the balance, the equanimity, the posture, the meditation. So it is one of the best practices to do. But I would take dancing also and tell you the same thing, except that I can't dance. I can do Tai Chi anywhere, sitting on my porch. I can't dance whenever I want. Otherwise, I'd do dancing, which is even better because it's emotional. Dancing. It has the emotional component, the affection connection. You understand? The affection connection with all the rest of the movements.
The affection connection.
The dancing.
Yeah.
Affection. And you're dancing with somebody, you're relating with them. This is Tantra.
This is Tantra. Tell us more about Tantra, because nowadays everyone says and thinks Tantra
Tantra is an ancient yogic practice, a Tibetan practice, it's a Persian practice. It simply means the integration of all what I'm talking about to the spiritual level, almost like Rumi says, we are one. It's the oneness principle, but it's using all the sensual features to it. That was the same thing with the Eros in the Greek tradition. Eros was the son of Zeus. It is a god.
It's a god.
It wasn't. It had sex in it, but it's not sex. It's a spiritual pathway that was cultivated by the people who were Dionysians.
Yes.
And in the Eastern tradition, in the Persian tradition, read Rumi and Kabi and Hafiz. It's very sensual stuff.
Yes, very sensual.
Kabi, India, these were these traditions. Now it's just popularized. It's kind of like saying love is a Subaru. You know that Subaru used the word love to publicize their cars. Or eating this pizza is a love experience. See, this is the Roman satyricon. This is the final days of when everything is becoming commercialized. But that's okay. Go ahead. That's the cycle. But the real essence, that's why you have to be careful when you use the word tantra and eros, because they have now these marketing connotations, you know. But in reality, those traditions were spiritual traditions which use sexuality, sensuality, movement, feeling, the same way I'm describing it in the 5 rings, but I don't call it tantra. I call it 5 rings.
It's involving the whole self, like not just your thinking, not just your physical grounding and movement.
The relationship is very important in one of those stages. That's part of the emotional affection connection.
The affection.
Because when you make an affection, it's very good for the nervous system.
Yeah. It's bringing forth your whole self into the world. It's being in the now. It's being in the now.
Yes.
Yeah, and
exactly. So maybe we need.
Yeah. You were saying?
Maybe we just need to maybe we just need to find better formulations. The words are not going to do it. Again, it comes down less words, more the experience. You know, because when you call something, you have opposition right away, disagreement. If you say one thing, somebody will say no. So you want to disarm the reliance on words and concepts and be flexible. So for example, if somebody says, what's sagittal? I say, well, going forward and back. In my system, I just reduce it to path 1 and path 2. And some people, I don't know path 1 and path 2. So sagittal, okay, you don't know sagittal, forward and back.
Forward and back.
You have to be flexible. Feldenkrais said this, it was one of his good observations. Do the same thing, say the same thing in at least three different ways, and you have greater flexibility than if you're fixed on one way of describing and doing.
Yes, because
much better. Look, I do swim this way. Look, I can modify it. See that?
Yeah.
I can swim this way and I can swim this way. I can swim this way, be able to change without thinking. Look, I changed from here to here. I didn't stop and think about what I'm doing next. I automatically didn't. Just like the animals have to do in real life.
In real life.
They can't say, which movement shall I do now to get away from the lion chasing me, you know?
Yes. No, like...
Also, laughter is very important. Laughter, Rumi Hafiz's book, I just ordered it again. I heard God laughing is the name of the book of his poetry.
Wow.
Beautiful poem, Hafiz. You must have laughter in all this.
Yes.
I should put that in my rings. I'll now add that into my rings. Laughter is very important.
Laughter is very important. Yes, it's this...
Ridere in Italiano.
Reírse.
Yeah.
Is this freshness and certain naivety and openness, childish also experience. Because when you laugh,
yeah, I mean, but
you got
I
through.
Put it in there, but it's not important.
Yeah, but when you laugh, in a very gentle way, you pierce through the jail of the words that assemble a discourse. You laugh your way through that and open into like the endless now. That when there's not enough time to think on a survival situation. It's only you and all your might in a split second, like your whole life is defined for a fraction of a second. In the same way that we arrived here, I mean, like I don't know. I am the winning sperm and the winning egg, and I happened, but that was like a split opportunity in the eternity of the universe. And yes, it's complex science, and yes, there are facts and testable things, but it doesn't make this beingness in the now less wondrous. So, Joseph, would you share with us a little movement experience, maybe 3-5 minutes? So, the sensualists that are
coaching, I've been doing hundreds of them.
Yeah, we've been doing it.
But look, I just bring you.
But
look,
like
I want to sit, I'm sitting here. Look, just this move, you follow it. Don't let me explain it. See if you can follow it. I can explain it as I do it. As I sit, look, the vector of force is going this way. Look, it's going up in the front. You see? Yeah. Going up, but you see that I'm getting taller?
Yes.
You see? It's not that I'm crunching my abdomen. I'm following a vector of force, a direction of energy, which in this case is in this plane, in the gravity field. Look, and I take my hands to grab the tissue and pull it up with me. So now I get the feel of the tissue. I bring them to the brain information, tissue, fascia, pull up, which is also myofascia, muscles and fascia. And then I link it with the vector of force because I need the map of the direction. You need to be in the right direction. And look, I go up and now I can do things here. Look, I can go swimming butterfly. If I go the other way, look, sagittal extension mode, which is mathematical, but it's really a path. Then I come up, you see, this way, but I'm still going up. Now, if I put them both together, I get the two movements in sync. Watch. Or I can go either way. I'm also breathing. I'm getting uplift, which is central. I'm staying in balance, and I like it.
And I like it. And I like it.
And you are strengthening the pelvic floor because I'm engaging the pubococcygeal muscles automatically when I go into this path. Look, this one engages the pubococcygeal. Look, this one, not this one. It has to be this one. And most people don't even know this.
Most people love.
And so how are you going to talk about sexuality and sensuality and if you don't even know where your pelvic floor is? If you don't know where your body is hidden, for you the world will never be real, Kabir said. For you don't know where your pelvic floor is and how it moves, for you the world will never be real. For you, it's just a fictional mode.
Yes, you cannot open the door of your house if you don't have the key in your hand and use it. And I mean, it's like you already own your house. Please open the door, get into your palace and enjoy the feast that you've built along your life. And it's yours to enjoy.
Just do what they do. You know, when you go play a very important culture, soccer game, which Mexicans and everybody in the world does, you know, before they talk about anything, they say, go on the field and practice, do your practice of movements first. Get the movements down, and then we'll talk about the strategy.
Get the
first
down.
Get the movements down. First, if you want to plant the seed, put it in the right soil, in the right pot, in the right place, and water it. Otherwise, you're waiting for the plant to grow, but you haven't done the foundation. And that's what's missing now is the foundation. People don't know where their foundation is. That's somatic amnesia.
Not sensory motor amnesia.
Sensory motor. Yeah, this in the new language in neuroscience is dissonance, somatic dissonance, dissonanza, not being in sync. Yeah. Dissonant, like music that's not in sync.
Noise. Like
dissonanza is being in sync. Look, I'm moving. Look, I'm swimming. This is resonance. If my breathing and everything's going together, I can swim a lot longer than if I do this and struggle and build my muscles. So bone strengthening and muscle strengthening is, yes, important, but it's really the whole movement, functional movement coordination. Look, that is the most important thing of all. Then you never have a shoulder problem, you never have a spine problem, you never have a hip problem.
Yes, and you're bringing your whole self into what you're doing. You're doing the
I'm using the rotational path. What I'm using I'm going to explain this, that when I do the rotational path, look, I have to touch here. You see? Because if I don't touch here, and this is tight, look, I can't go up. Look, I'm stopped. Watch, look at my arm. Can't go up. Now I free it. Look where my arm went. That's from here, not from the arm.
Yeah, from the
fascia. Well, from the fascia. Trochanter. It's from the fascia here. Look, this is the entire fascial complex going up. The big wide band of the muscles. But I don't need to know the muscles. The animals don't know the muscles. I need to get the feel. Look, if I do this, look, my arm went up easy. Look, around my head.
Yes.
If you tighten here, watch what happens in the head. Look, it pulls. Now you have to struggle. A simple concept that is so basic, so fundamental, you would think it could be taught in kindergarten. But it isn't.
But it isn't.
That's the somatic disassociation. We have not been doing the right things to develop ourselves, and then later we have to do everything to recover, and then we have to do 100 different courses in order to get back, which is crazy because nobody can integrate the 100 courses anymore. If you take every course in the world on breathing, you will not be integrated.
You will not be integrated.
You see?
Yes.
Well, maybe if you do enough. Might.
Yes. Like, you need to look at the moon, not at 1,000 fingers.
That's right. That's correct. So look, when I do this movement, you see, now look, you see how I'm tracking the tissue with my hands? I'm touching myself, which is also making sensuous, sensory, sensorial, feeling, enhances. Brain is now getting more information. It's like feeding your plants the best plant food. If you leave it out, see, they didn't know that. In the old days, they didn't understand. I had a Rolf do the fascia, but was terrible at functional movement. Feldenkrais was great at functional movement, but he understood the fascia, but he never taught it. So everybody was missing a piece of the elephant. And now we have to put the simple. The formula for putting the elephant is simple.
Yeah,
it's very simple. But getting people to do it is practice, practice, practice.
Stay on the path. Track the whole world. Essentially, Joseph, how can the essentialist here
Don't worry about it. Just follow the path.
Just follow the path, and you will arrive.
Yeah, journey without an end. Even the Buddhists talk about journey without an end. In other words, journey without expectation of results. Because attachment to results is already you're futurizing. You see, you're dependent on the result, but you want the result. But the way to get to the result is by doing the right movements.
You actually arrive at the result at every step. Like the path is walking. It's not that the path is out there. No, the path. It's where you're
showing me every step I do
right now.
Verification. If I'm walking right, and I had to walk right to do the trekking I did because the Himalayas, that was 16,000, 17,000 feet elevation. You have to move right, and you learn from the experience. It's called Sbagliare, imparare in Italian. Learn, make a mistake and learn.
Make a mistake and learn.
Make a mistake and the brain says, oh, mistake, so that's an impulse to learn. So mistakes are necessary for the learning process.
Yes. And it's
because the brain says, oh, you tripped. Ah, correct.
Yes, and it's great to give oneself the opportunity to explore, even if you fail, and consider failing part of the process and part of the journey.
That's where you have to cultivate another level, which is emotional equanimity. Emotional equanimity means, and I have a whole process that I've developed around how to do that, how to deal with the voice that says, oh, I failed. Oh, I'll never get it right. There's a way, but you have to do it at the muscular neurological level, not just in the neocortex. Because you do it in the neocortex, it doesn't change it. It just temporarily relieves it. It doesn't change unless you change the brain. Read Norman Deutsch's book, The Brain That Changes Itself. That's the point. To change the brain, you must deal at the foundation and not just deal with the treatments. The remedies, which you can do, is good, you need it, but you want to not keep repeating the same thing all over again.
Yes.
You don't want to keep repeating.
Especially
so that's neuroplasticity. Yeah.
Yeah, especially because if you change, you have to learn. Like
yes, but there's a again. Now, how do we do that?
And it means reorganizing yourself in a certain way that then you have an alternative. You have the alternative of doing what you were doing or choosing doing what you've learned. And that's maturity. Joseph, how can we learn more about your work? Do you have a website?
Of course. Well, it's really being conducted by my teachers and students now, and I'll send it to you, coremovementintegration.com. It's one word, Core Movement Integration.
Core Movement Integration.com.
You can, and I'm teaching, the only thing I'm teaching now, because I don't want to be running around the world like I did. I'm doing some training in France and Italy. I did one in Boston recently, but I'm more interested in teaching online because it's to reach more. It's called the Masterful Moves course. We're going to start it in February, and it's teaching exactly what I'm showing you, but it's now going to do the actual practices, so that we actually do what I showed you, following specific tissue with anatomical access that's precise. You don't construct an automobile unless you've got all the parts working together right. Otherwise, it won't function properly.
No.
And so, well, this my Masterful Moves is exactly the course that does this embodiment. The rest is words.
Yeah.
In other words, we now have to let's now do it and put it into walking, which is the central human movement, functional movement, the most important one. Or then we can apply it to swimming, we can apply it to anything you want. I don't care. You can, anything you name, I will use this basic biomechanical formula to guide us through. That's the material.
The masterful.
So that's what we do in the course.
The masterful.
But you have to just learn the pathways first. Because I can't teach you salsa and fancy moves if you don't master the step.
Exactly.
If you don't master the step, I can show you all the figure, they call it, all the turns, and you will be out of sync.
Yeah,
you have to have foundation down. Musician, you don't play in the orchestra if you don't all play in the same key and in the right way. You have to be in the same place. If the instruments are not tuned together, it's a disaster.
It's a disaster.
It's the train for true. It's a disaster. Put a symphony together with the most brilliant solo performers, and it will be a disaster. Because they have to play together, and they have to be in sync. And they have to all be playing in the same chord, the same notes, and the same beats. And if they're not, it doesn't sound good. And if you have ballroom dancing, it's the same thing. And if you have a soccer game, it's the same thing. If you have anything, swimming, it's the same thing. And if you have a relationship, it's the same thing. And nobody sees that because that's a very complex picture. See, because relationship is a lot of thousands of factors. But you know what? If you don't have the common movements together, the relationship doesn't work. No matter.
There's no way. There's no way it can work.
It's all the same. 6 major paths is it. The musicians have 7 notes. That's it. And how many keys? The 7 keys. And you can construct music forever and ever. It's the same thing in the body. There are only 6 pathways, but nobody seems to know them. It's strange.
Yeah. That's why it's important to learn them. So the course so the course is called the Masterful Moves, right? Would you would you say again the name of your website?
Core Movement Integration, all connected. Core, C-O-R-E, movementintegration.com.
coremovement-integration.com. Thank you, Joseph. This has been an amazing episode with so much gold, so many movement practices, experiences, very important historical background of somatic movements, and knowing about your adventures, and definitely
Pleasure. I enjoy doing this. You know, I'm happy to do an introduction, free. I like, get some of your Spanish friends and Mexican friends, they speak English like you. And I can speak some Spanish, but I can't. I could do it in French, but not yet in Spanish. I can read Spanish very well, but I haven't got the practice enough to speak fluently.
Yeah, to speak fluently. The wonderful thing is that we all speak body. So yeah, that's
yes. All I have to do is this, you see. But you have to know your anatomy and you have to have the map. You don't put the soccer people on the floor without them all knowing the map.
Yes. You need to have the map in hand. So the message for
just like a dance step. Just like a dance step. You must have the dance step that people at least know the bachata move.
Yes.
It's 8 steps lateral motion, right?
Yeah, right.
And then it's forward and back and back and back. Then you can do all the combinations.
Yes, we need to have a very clear basis, like a language of movement.
Yeah, that's why they should do. If we've got that, Masterful Moves is for practitioners who have that base. As long as they have that base, we can go, because otherwise they will be confused. They have to know the base. I don't teach the salsa ballroom dancing unless you know the salsa steps.
Yes. So if you could share with us one final quote to close this episode and say goodbye to our audience, what would it be? Like, what's your favorite quote from all times?
I don't have a favorite vote from all times.
No?
But I have one that comes to me from Rumi.
From Rumi.
The Persian. That was also Tantra. If you look into Rumi, this was Persian Tantra. He said, let the beauty you love be in what you do. Let the beauty you love be in what you do, not what you talk about.
Yes.
There are many ways. There are many ways to kiss the ground of being. That's poetic language.
Yes. Yes.
There are many ways to kiss the ground of being.
the ground of being. Yeah, that's experiencing the moon itself. Thank you so much, Joseph.
You're welcome. Enjoyment. A la próxima.
A la próxima. And thank you, sensualists, that you've been with us in this fantastic episode with the one and only Josef DellaGrotte. I hope that you share this episode because it's one of a kind. And also, if you haven't subscribed already to the Sensual Sessions podcast, please go to www.centraldepoder.com and get yourself signed up to get these episodes delivered on your inbox weekly. Until next time, remember to sense your fire so you can share your flame.